What is up, everybody? Welcome back to RacingDudes.com. Welcome back to another one of our previews. Well, this race feels like we've had a build-up similar to a Triple Crown race. That's about the best way I could describe it. Let's go to the feature race of the weekend and one of the best races, if not the best race of the season so far. Let's go to the Stephen Foster Stakes at Churchill Downs. This will be on Saturday, June 27th, race 11 on the card. Field of 7 here, going a mile and eighth on the dirt. Of course, a grade 1 event. I'll put the entries up for you now on the screen, and we'll get going on this one and preview these 7 horses. And like I said, it does feel like the best race of the year so far. And who knows? You never know how the season's going to shake out. It might be the best race of the year, although I think we've got good ones coming up as well. All right, let's get to it. Number 1, Willy D's will kick us off. And look, I think when you look at this horse has won 2 races in a row, and including last time out, winning a race at Oaklawn Park, going a mile and 16th, the Lake Ouachita Stakes, and beat Cole Battle, who's a decent horse, beat a horse named MacMan by a lot, and MacMan not that good, but still a nice win. I think when you look at this, though, realistically, probably a little bit up against it here. This looks like a little bit too tough of a spot. We saw the horse 3 races back, beat by Accelerize just a touch. And just a touch, 2 horses that probably wouldn't factor into this race. Rattle and Roll beating 4 races back. And you kind of look, the horse has been beaten by some good ones. Unfortunately for Willy D's, there's some good ones in here as well. I do think he does play a part in this race because he is going to be a horse that I think is going to be forwardly placed. You look at his last several races, he likes to be on or near the lead. And I think from the rail, he's probably going to go. Luis Saez jumps aboard. The last time Luis Saez was aboard, September 27th of 2025, he took him straight to the front in the Lucas Classic. So I think he's going to the lead. We know Saez is kind of a speed rider as well. So we'll see if Willy D's can make an impact here on the front end. I do think he will be the one they're going to have to catch. Now, can they catch them? Probably so. The number 2 is Abarrio. And this horse really showed an unbelievable race. I thought last time out in the Oaklawn Handicap, a grade 2 event, going a mile and eighth. That is today's distance as well. The horse was a winner by 2 lengths, beating Sovereignty and beating Journalism. In that race, Sovereignty ended up setting the pace. Journalism was kind of tracking him. It was very weird from a pace perspective. Abarrio just zoomed by them all for a 2-length victory, like I said. 2 races back, Abarrio was off of a long layoff of 146 days, took the lead at the top of the stretch in the Pegasus World Cup, and it kind of felt like, wow, Abarrio's got this thing for back-to-back years, and then got a little tired, and Skippy Longstocking was able to come get him. I feel like in that race, he ran his race. He probably was just a little tired from the layoff and needed one. So he's looking awfully good now. 3rd race off the layoff here. I would assume he's going to show up with his best effort. I think at this moment, he's in very, very good form. The one pause I would have on him, or I would give people on him, sometimes he's in good form and then he'll show up and just not run very well. He's been a very inconsistent horse all year long, or all career long, I should say. And so that's always the worry. When's he kind of going to fall off again? We've seen him do really, really well for a streak, then fall off for a streak, and you're like, oh boy, I don't know about him anymore. And then he'll show up and run really well again. But all signs are he's doing well. I think he's going to show up with a big race, and I think he's going to be very tough to beat. I think a mile and an eighth is probably where you see him at his best. He did win the Breeders' Cup Classic at a mile and a quarter. That was a race that you kind of felt wasn't all that good that year. Not the heavy hitters in it that year, kind of a weaker version of the Breeders' Cup Classic. But still, you look at his mile and eighth races, I think that's where we've seen him at his best overall. So I think he's in here with a big shot, Abarrio. How about number 3, Sovereignty? Well, speaking of layoffs, Sovereignty was coming off of a 238-day layoff last time out when he ran in the Oaklawn Handicap. He got second, beaten 2 lengths. I mentioned earlier, it was very weird. He was in front. He set the pace in that race, and that's something he's never done his entire career. He ran pretty well for being, doing something different for the first time, and also, off that long layoff. I thought he ran pretty well, but it wasn't the normal explosion down the stretch that we saw in the Travers and the Belmont and the Kentucky Derby. We just didn't see that in that spot. He still ran like I said, he got second, beaten 2 lengths. I think he's going to run an improved race. I think he's going to get back to more of like kind of what we've seen from him. I do question, not that he's good at a mile and eighth. I think he is good at a mile and eighth, but I do question that maybe a mile and a quarter would suit him better, because I do think, that's where we've seen his just dominant races. I also think more, hey, I think he can go a mile and an eighth and be just fine. He just needs to kind of improve off of that long layoff, and I think he will in the spot. So I think look out for Sovereignty here. I think he's setting in on a big race, and I think he will get more of that preferred tracking type of trip. I do not think he'll be in the front. I think Willy D's and Forge Steel, who we're going to talk about in a second, is going to assure that Sovereignty's not on the lead this time around. So it'll be very interesting to see where he sits. But I think he's sitting on a huge race in this one. Another horse I think setting on a huge race is the number 4 Baeza. This is a horse that ran against Sovereignty, several times last year, 3 times to be exact. And look, he battled him, but he just couldn't beat him, right? I mean, the closest race was the Jim Dandy, and a race at a mile and eighth, which is today's distance. And Baeza ran very well, but he wasn't as good as Sovereignty back of last year. He got away from him in the Pennsylvania Derby, and he won very impressively. And he beat a horse named Magnitude, who has come back to be pretty good since that Pennsylvania Derby. We'll talk about him in a second. He's won 3 straight since then, so that's a pretty good win to beat Magnitude. 6th in the Breeders' Cup Classic to end his season, and it was, just kind of a lackluster type of effort there. Then the story kind of takes a turn. John Sheriff's, unfortunately passes away, so this horse has to be transferred to Bill Mott. Coming in off a long layoff last time out, this was on Kentucky Oaks Day in the Alley Sheba, 181 days off, and just missed the break / got held at the break / spotted a pretty darn good field, 8 or 9 lengths early, if that, maybe more, and ran on and almost won the thing. Got beat 3/4 of lengths by Corporate Power and Skippy Longstocking. 2 horses are pretty darn good, like I said. So look, I thought it was a really, really good return of the races. The problem kind of still is he does goofy things in his races. It's something kind of different, it seems like, every race. And so you kind of worry, okay, now we're up against Sovereignty again, and now you're throwing in White Abarrio and you're throwing in Magnitude. I think the talent's there with Baeza. I kind of think it's always kind of been there with Baeza. I just worry that he's going to do something to cost himself, whether it be a horrible start that really brutally cost him, or just little things throughout the race here and there. Maybe he's not in quite the position they want him to be in. Maybe he moves too early. Maybe he moves too late. Things like that have happened in his other races as well. Maybe it's like the Belmont Stakes where he just didn't really want to be there that day, whether it be the paddock or the post parade, or even in the race, he kind of didn't really act like he wanted to be there. I mean, those are things that he's done in the past. And I don't blame anybody for wanting to take a shot at him here. I think this is a really nice horse, and this could be the race where you see the huge improvement and you get him at a good price and you could really feel good about it. But I just feel like there's so many heavy hitters in here. He might do something little here and there to cost himself, and that's my worry with the number 4 Baeza. Let's go to the number 5 Magnitude next. And if you need a refresher on his 3-year-old season, I'll give it to you now. The horse was kind of just an average horse, and then showed up in the Risen Star and won by 9 3/4 and looked like an amazing horse, right? That was back in February of last year. Unfortunately, he had a few problems, few injury issues, and he missed the entire Triple Crown. He comes back in the Iowa Derby on July 5th and looks exactly like he did in the Risen Star, just absolutely dominates a field. And now it's like, okay, we're healthy and we're going on to the big time races. He went to the Travers and he was horrific in the Travers. He just did not show up in that race, and he got 3rd, but I think there was only 4 in the race, and he got beat 20 lengths. Went back to Pennsylvania Derby. I thought he ran much better, and he showed for the first time running a really good race off the pace. His 3 races, the Risen Star, the Iowa Derby, and the Travers, all on the lead. This time he came from out of it, and I thought it was interesting. He comes from out of it, and you're watching that Pennsylvania Derby live, you're like, oh man, he's not firing again. Then he does actually fire, and he runs really well down the stretch. He does get beat, though. He gets 2nd to Baeza, beaten 2 1/4. Shows up in the Clark after that and wins and runs really, really well, stalking the pace. Then goes to the Razorback first start of this year as we fast forward to the 4-year-old season. Thought he looked really good in that race, winning by 3 3/4, beat a couple horses that aren't top quality, but decent for sure. And then he goes to the Dubai World Cup and he beats Forever Young. Now, here's the deal. Forever Young over in Dubai, he really hasn't, I should say, run all that well. Last year he got beat after winning the Saudi Cup. This year he got beat after winning the Saudi Cup. So that if there's a kind of an Achilles heel of Forever Young, it is that race, the Dubai World Cup. He hasn't brought his best, but still Magnitude winning that race. Very, very good. Now he comes back here 3 months off. He comes back after going overseas, and everybody always worries about that first start overseas. And I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I will say this: Nisos came back from overseas, albeit a longer layoff. It was a Saudi Cup to the Met Mile. He looked pretty darn good. I think this horse entering here tells me that Asmussen thinks he's going to look pretty darn good in this spot. So it will be very interesting to see what happens with Magnitude here. But obviously a horse that has looked very good since maybe iron out a few problems as far as what happened in the Travers. He's kind of back into that top form right now, and he shows up with a big shot. Two outsiders draw the outside here, and the number 6, Forged Steel. I actually think he's very, very interesting in this spot. I actually liked him a lot in the Hollywood Gold Cup, but that was mostly because I absolutely despised every other horse in that field but him. And I thought, look, Safi's bringing this horse in. Flavian Pratt's going to ride. He's going to get the lead, and these horses aren't very good. Maybe he just goes on with it, and that's what happened. Unfortunately for him, there's a lot of really good horses in this spot. I think him and the number 1 Willy D's are going to battle in the front. And like I said, I do think it's going to set up for a better kind of spot for Sovereignty and even White Abarrio as well. So I think they go to the front. I think this horse is going to be up there setting the pace. I don't think he'll be able to stick around when the real running begins. And finally, the number 7 is Navajo Warrior. This is another one that last time out showed a lot of speed in the Pimlico Special. Another horse I liked in his last race. Flavian Pratt aboard, Safi Joseph, sound familiar? Yeah, and he looked very good in the Pimlico Special. Also won an allowance 2 races back at Gulfstream Park. Another one that could play part of the pace, but again, while I may have liked the 6 and the 7 in their last starts, this is a whole different ball game here. I just don't think they match up with the likes of 4 horses in here, and that's the problem with White Abarrio, well, with Sovereignty, with Baeza, and with Magnitude. I just, I don't know that they match up with those horses, but I do think another horse that'll play a part in the pace. All right, that's the 7. It's a long preview for just 7 horses, but you could talk forever about 4 of them because they're just really elite. I'm going to go with a horse and stick with a horse that I haven't picked against in a long time, including last time out when he lost. But I'm going to go number 3, Sovereignty here. I think he tightens up the screws after that last race. I think he'll run an improved race here. I think he's awfully tough in this spot. And I'm going to go with number 2, White Abarrio in second. I think he's squarely the horse to beat in here after Sovereignty. I think it's going to be a battle between these two. I'm just betting on the fact that I think Sovereignty, second off the layoff, going to run better, just like White Abarrio did second off the layoff when he ran a much improved race. I think this time it's going to be Sovereignty that turns the tables, but I think it's 3-2. And then I'm going to go with number 5, Magnitude, in third. So, look, I'm not getting real creative in here. I think Magnitude's going to show up and run very well. I think he's the one they're ultimately going to have to catch, White Abarrio and Sovereignty. I think they turn for home and Magnitude's going to take over. I think he's going to pass some tired horses there. And then I think it's going to be Sovereignty and White Abarrio running on from the back. And then Baeza, I'll put in fourth. I get it. I get people want to get this horse to the winner's circle. I'm still skeptical. He might do some little things that cause him trouble in this race, and he can't do that against the most elite class. If you want to play him, I get it. I understand it. I see what everybody else sees. I also see a horse that beats himself a lot of times. So that's what my worry is with him. So I'm going to go 3-2-5-4 in this year's running of the Stephen Foster. All right, guys, that'll do it for this preview. Hit that like button if you like. Hit subscribe. You really like it. Want to get alerting time. We do videos like this. And most importantly, good luck if you're betting Churchill Downs on Saturday.